Good evening, esteemed members of the school board. My name is Tamara Jimenez, and as a proud Hispanic student in this district, I stand before you to advocate for the implementation of the equity policy aligned with the One Fairfax policy. This policy is not only crucial for students like me, but for every student in our diverse community. Growing up as a racial minority, I have experienced firsthand the challenges and barriers that can hinder our educational journey. It is sad to face the discrimination, as I did when someone told me to go back to my country at school. Despite reporting this incident, no actions were taken, leaving me unheard and invisible. Even though I do not look Mexican, it is still who I am. By implementing the equity policy, we can ensure that no student, regardless of their race or background, experiences what I went through. This policy acknowledges the unique needs and experiences of students like me, and it provides a framework for addressing and eradicating the systemic discrimination. For students like me, this policy means that my voice will be heard and experiences will be validated. It means that no student will have to endure the pain or discrimination without the consequences of those responsible. It means that we will receive and support and the resources necessary to thrive academically, emotionally, and socially. But this policy is not just about my personal experience. It is about creating an inclusive environment for all students, and recognizes that diversity is our strength, and that every student brings unique perspectives and talents to the classrooms. By embracing equity, we ensure that each student's potential is realized, regardless of their race, ethnicity, or background. Furthermore, the implementation of this policy sends a powerful message to our entire community. It shows that we, as a school district, stand against discrimination and intolerance. It sets a precedent that such behavior will not be tolerated, and it emphasizes our commitment to fostering a safe and welcoming environment for all. In conclusion, the equity policy aligned with One Fairfax policy will have a great impact on students like me who have faced discrimination and adversity. It will provide support and resources needed to overcome those challenges associated by, sorry.
That's okay. Thank you very much. Great job.
Student number 2.
Good evening, esteemed members of the board. My name is Samad Qureshi, and I'm a proud student in this district. Today, I stand before you to advocate for the implementation of the equity policy, aligned with the One Fairfax policy. As a racial minority student, I believe this policy is essential, not only for students like me, but for every student in our diverse community. First and foremost, this policy recognizes that each student starts from a different starting line. It acknowledges that the barriers and challenges we face are not always of our own making. By intentionally considering equity in our policies and programs, we ensure that every student has an equitable opportunity to succeed, regardless of their background or circumstances. For me, as a racial minority student, this policy represents hope and fairness. It means that my unique needs will be recognized and addressed. It means that my struggles and challenges won't be overlooked, but rather met with targeted support and resources. Equity allows us to level the playing field, removing the disparities caused by factors like economics, disabilities, parental education, and immigration status. But this policy isn't just about me. It recognizes that a one-size-fits-all approach does not work for every student in this diverse community. By embracing equity, we can provide individualized support and accommodations to meet the diverse needs of all students. The equity policy aligned with the Fairfax One policy, it will create an inclusive educational environment where every student has an equitable opportunity to succeed. By embracing equity, we empower students to reach their full potential and ensure a brighter future for all. Let's seize this opportunity to make a lasting positive impact on the lives of students in our district. Thank you and good night.
Nira Datta. Nira Datta. Madam Chair, she's virtual and we're trying to bring her up.
Thank you.
Okay, we seem to be having technical difficulties, so we'll come back. Robert Rigby?
Good evening. My name is Robert Rigby. I am co-president of FCPS Pride, which is an LGBTQIA2S+ employees and families group in FCPS. I'll put this first. As far as the students' rights and responsibilities goes, students with intellectual and developmental disabilities are among our most vulnerable students. I urge you to protect their rights and pass the possible amendment requiring that parent consent be required before they are asked to provide statements that can be used against them. Now you're really in for it because I'm winging it. I'm going to speak to policies. People spoke earlier to people. Michelle, as Ms. O'May said, you held the board accountable. As Ms. Cohen said, you stood up for kids that were being bullied, in particular LGBTQI kids, and you lifted my spirits in desperate moments, and I really think some scars and children were rescued. For my friend Francis, you also, for you, your all means all, really means all, and it includes me and my folk, and I thank you for that. And for myself, I will miss you. You'll love retirement. Godspeed.
Helen Miller?
My name is Helen Miller, and I'm a longtime FCPS parent. I'm pleased that the new strategic plan specifically mentions partnering with families, both in the equity commitments as well as in Pillar B, vibrant home, school, and community partnerships. But wait, the family and community partnerships is now the second priority in the equity draft policy, below facilities. It was moved down after the equity policy work group session last week, when it was stated that things that we can work on should be higher on the list. Wow. Here are some suggestions about how FCPS can work on this relationship. It starts by taking meaningful steps every day, beginning today. It starts by treating parents with respect rather than as an inconvenience. It starts with actions that demonstrate that you do value parents and their viewpoints and not just the same few groups of activists. And by not scheduling meetings like the SR&R changes right after spring break holiday. And by giving the community adequate time to comment, such as with the school year calendar options. And it starts by not pushing through an equity policy in the summer with no public vetting and comment period. However, while many parents believe this key policy deserves a wider review and conversation, we now know it will pass tonight. We are supportive of expanding programming and academic opportunities at all schools, but we are already hearing concerns from many parents about how equitable practices will be implemented. Does equity mean restricting or reducing programming and activities at some schools, taking away advanced options like AP and IB classes, mandating the demographic makeup of clubs like Model UN and Science Olympiad, taking a portion of class dues from some schools to subsidize others, restricting where schools may hold proms and all-night grad parties? For example, would off-site locations no longer be allowed?
Neera Datta?
Good evening, esteemed school board members. My name is Neera Dada, and I'm a mom to 3 FCPS students and an auntie to so many more. I'm joining this meeting tonight to support the equity policy that has been proposed by FCPS. In recent years, there have been a few buzzwords thrown around, and I find most people are not even sure what it means. Equality means the state of being equal, especially when it comes to status, rights, and opportunities. When we say equality, we mean each individual or group of people is given the same resources or opportunities. When we talk about equity, we are ensuring that everyone has access to the same opportunities and that individual factors do not hold any student back from reaching their full, unique, and limitless potential, while also responding to and addressing the barriers that result in marginalized groups to be underserved disproportionately within our system. When we use the word diversity, it can mean so many different things. We may think of the token Black or brown student, the teacher or staff member in a school photo on the website. I would encourage our school board to think beyond appearance-based differences and consider championing equity in the intersections where many of our students live and thrive, especially when it comes to our students who have physical or cognitive disabilities. There are so many underserved families in FCPS who are food insecure or housing insecure due to the lack of affordable housing here in Fairfax County. I encourage you to pass this policy because it's definitely something that we need. Thank you for your time.
Marnie Matyak.
Good evening. My name is Marnie Matyak, and I am the president of Fairfax Education Association, retired. When language immersion programs were first initiated in FCPS, I was a young teacher at Herndon Elementary. On paper, the French immersion program was an excellent idea. In practice, it caused the school to lose its Title I status as more middle-class students transferred into the program. The differences between the Gen Ed and the immersion students were never more striking than when we took our classes to assembly. The Gen Ed classes included white, Black, brown students, many of whom accessed free and reduced lunch. The immersion students were white. Herndon eventually became a two-way Spanish immersion program and regained its Title I status. However, impoverished students were denied additional support for more than a decade. Fast forward to the end of my career in 2021. I was a reading teacher at Hunters Woods, another school that lost its Title I status years ago and became a magnet school and a Level 4 advanced academic center. Again, the differences between Gen Ed and AAP were striking. The Gen Ed classes included white, brown, Black, and Indigenous students, while the AAP classes were predominantly white and Asian. Limited access to gifted programs by underserved populations isn't just an FCPS issue. Nationwide, 8.1 of white and 12.7 of Asian American children in public schools are considered gifted, compared to 4.5 of Hispanic and 3.5% of Black students. While I support these programs, I use them as examples to highlight the need for a robust equity policy that ensures that all of our students have access to educational opportunities, and these programs do not negatively impact the larger student population. Only then can FCPS break the segregation cycle and serve all students' needs. Thank you very much.
Sujatha Hampton.
Good evening. My name is Sujatha Hampton, and I'm the second Vice President and Education Chair of the Fairfax County NAACP. I've come to speak in support of the equity policy. I attended the work session on Wednesday, so I know you all support this policy completely. I know you already understand.
I'm sorry, Ms. Hampton, we only allow one person at the podium, so if your friends could take a step back, that would be helpful.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. They wanted to speak, but they were a little afraid to come forward.
I understand.
Thank you. Thank you. I attended the work session on Wednesday, so I know you all support this policy completely. I know you already understand the time-critical nature of the work. I'm here mostly to thank you for standing up for the kids and families in our schools who will be watching this historic policy pass. I underscore Ms. McLaughlin's remarks on Wednesday when Dr. King presented the work. She, like all of us, expressed her dismay that 6 years after One Fairfax, our schools find themselves in the same struggle: disparate access, outcomes, hiring, staffing, programs, facilities, and on. Issues that impact every corner of our county and every child intersectionally, all our children. And as today's story about the maligning and unwarranted firing of a beloved band director in Annandale High School and the truly horrible story from Oakton Cheer, neither of which issues has been fully investigated or resolved, indicate there's a serious and ongoing problem in FCPS that we must own and we must end. So again, I thank all 12 of you for your bravery in the face of people who do not want to see this policy put into place, who are hoping you will delay and demand never-ending fine-tuning of the language in the document, as though the failure of our schools to treat our children and staff equitably will be solved with the perfect word and the most apt definition, rather than via a commitment to the principles and moral obligations stated boldly, clearly, and without equivocation in the current version of the equity policy. Thank you again for this good work. I and the Fairfax County NAACP look forward to working with the board in any way we can to support the children and staff of FCPS as we put this visionary policy and natural extension of One Fairfax into action. Thank you.
Toby Latham.
Madam Chair, school board members, Dr. Reed, good evening. I speak tonight in support of the draft equity policy and to renew a request that the school board work toward adopting an augmentative and alternative communication, or AAC, policy. First, I want to thank the chair for highlighting the need to be repetitive about referencing inclusion in the draft equity policy, because making space for people with disabilities is often overlooked without such references in DEI programs. As a parent of a student with disabilities, I often encounter adults who incorrectly believe that people with disabilities need to be segregated to receive the supports that they deserve, which isn't surprising when we think about the fact that we raise kids around various programs that are segregated based on disability. We need to change our practices to hopefully change people's views so that we ensure that people like my son have a shot at thriving in their community as an adult. Second, I thank the superintendent for her continued emphasis on preparing students for careers that do not yet exist. But I challenge everyone here moving forward that we untether educational equity from future wage earning positions so that we can focus on creating an inclusive environment that does not yet exist. Some students with disabilities will never generate $1 of revenue for a company, but those students deserve the opportunity to achieve their full potential too. And that brings me to the need for the AAC policy. As the Supreme Court has made clear in its Rowley decision and again in the NJREF decision, the IDEA does not require school districts to write IEPs that give students an opportunity to achieve their full potential. So if we want to ensure that this equity policy reaches students with IEPs, there must be a framework beyond that provided in the IDEA to ensure that that happens. For example, things like timely and effective training for staff should not be subject to IEP team members knowing what they don't know and requesting necessary training that they didn't even know exists. Rather, the school district must make clear through action that even if an IEP team fails to include something like timely AAC training as an agreed-to service, that AAC users will still walk into their classrooms with well-trained staff so that they too have
Paul Biron.
Thank you for this opportunity to address you, Madam Superintendent and the school board. I am Paul Barron, and I am running for supervisor of Franconia, the Board of Supervisors here in Fairfax. When I first put my hat in the ring and was planning to run for office, I was inundated with phone calls regarding the school board's decisions on a variety of issues. I had no idea how bad things were when from the opinion perspective of the parents. By looking at you this evening and listening to you, I think you don't have the fangs and you're not the ghouls and goblins that you were made out to be. So I respect you for that. But I must also urge you to please consider, before spending so much money as you have on the equity and inclusion policies that you have, you might want to take another look at the Constitution of the United States and the Bill of Rights, which does guarantee equal opportunity to all of us citizens, regardless of what nationality, what country, what gender. Everything is all addressed already there. You don't need to spend all the taxpayers' money. I think the parents would agree with that. And I would urge anyone out there who is listening and watching that you also consider the opportunity to elect new officials finals come November, not only with the school board, but also with the supervisors. If you don't like what the job they're doing, you have a chance to change that. Thank you very much. By the way, the report card of being a 40% deficit between what Virginia education, the students' performance, and what the Fairfax students are is just absurd. It really is. Something needs to be changed with the way that we're teaching our kids writing, arithmetic, and American history.
David Walrod.
Good evening, Chair Sizemore Heiser, Dr. Reed, and members of the board. Thank you for allowing me to address you this evening. Like many others this evening, I am speaking to you on the equity policy. Our country has long touted its social and economic mobility. In the United States, the financial status of your parents should be less important to your future success than your own abilities, professional goals, and work ethic. In reality, however, the best indicators of standardized test scores such as the SAT and ACT, not just here in Fairfax County, but across the United States, are not GPA or work ethic, but parental income and zip code. In other words, your parents' wealth and where you live are better indications of how you'll do on tests meant to identify college readiness and success. This proposed equity policy has brought together stakeholders from across the country and across the county and across the political spectrum. This policy has been created with the goal of creating a school system where the best indicators of future success are a student's ability and work ethic, which is exactly what we should all strive to see. Moving to another topic, this school board is proposing a significant raise for themselves today. The proposal will be to specifically tie the pay of school board members to that of the budgeted price for a new teaching position. More specifically, the proposed salary exactly matches the rate of a new teacher with a master's degree. I wholeheartedly support creating this precedent as long as it is a precedent. I hope that when this board reconvenes in spring of 2027 to consider their own future salaries, they begin and end at the current rate of a new teacher with a master's degree. Thank you and have a good evening.
Mike Waltz.
Good evening again. I am a parent, but also I wear many hats in this county, one of which has allowed me to hear many cases of discrimination, racism, and mistreatment of students, not the least of which my own kids, and heaven help you if you're on the other side of me messing with my kids, but for the other 180,000+, what do you have? What we really have is a system that was not designed for many of the kids who are here now, despite the Constitution and all these other laws, massive resistance, racism, segregation, shutting down schools because non-white kids were going there as part of this country's, this state's history, which needs to be taught. Hasn't been yet. Wonder when it's going to happen, and we'll have to get that outside until we have what you all have before you tonight, this equity policy. It's actually really easy. These students wouldn't go through what they dealt with if we had something like this. The work is, the difficulty is going to be implementing it. Implementing any policy is a challenge. This is actually easy. For those who are opposed to it, I would say the difference is they want things for some children. This policy is for all children. I never see those opponents when children are subjected to racism. They never speak up, they never say anything. They come out times like this to speak against what we know needs to happen. So I want you to keep that in mind as you make the decision tonight. This is for all children, not just some, not just few. Thank you. I guess I got 20 more seconds. So I'll add to that. This policy, again, it is really just the beginning. It's a commitment that has not yet been made. And we will work arm in arm with you to make sure that even those who succeed you get it done the right way. Thank you.
Air Queen.
Hello, my name is Air Queen. I'm a queer, transgender, non-binary, autistic music teacher, and I use they, them pronouns. I'm also the solo parent of a rising kindergartner in FCPS and a board member of FCPS Pride. Over the past 2 years, I've had the opportunity to present on gender equity in 20 states and on both national and international levels. I love my job, and I've been a quarterfinalist for the Music Educator Grammy Award 3 years in a row. Because it is still June, I will wish everybody a happy Pride Month while I am up here. And I do appreciate the Pride Month proclamation that was read at the last meeting. At the same time, that the queer and trans community needs you to go farther than just the pretty words and platitudes. Queer and trans people exist all year long and come from every single background possible. Though it is often presented in a singular way in the media, queerness is not just a white experience. And only recognizing queerness during June or October is a way that the erasure of queer identities within the global majority populations continues. FCPS and this school board has the power to create intersectional and equitable policies for staff and students, and a vote to pass the equity policy is a step in the right direction, and I urge you to vote yes tonight. While approving the equity policy is a small step in the right direction, you do still have work to do. Partnering with and appeasing Nazi groups should never be acceptable. However, one of the groups that is listed as a contributing organization for the equity policy is not only called a hate group by the Southern Poverty Law Center, but has openly quoted Adolf Hitler in their published materials as recently as this past week. Working with Nazis should never be acceptable, and in my view, working with Nazis is the same as being one. When the work that gets done is compromised by appeasing bullies, the work will never be enough to protect or care for our minoritized groups. Thank you.
Lindsay Latham. Jennifer Bond. Arthur Purvis. Christine Bearden.
Before I start, I just want to say it's been a joy watching you, Ms. Taki. So I have something prepared, but I'm not sure I'm going to say it. This is about the equity policy. You guys are going to vote on it, but I guess it's a little disappointing because we were promised community participation to at least have a say in the draft, the second draft after the work meeting that you guys had. Look, we're all for equal opportunities. This is not about not passing something that could be really good. But what about me? I'm a parent, and I know so many other parents that wanted some input on this. All colors, all of my friends, all different nationalities. I just, I tried to get to find out who was on the committees for these policies. I couldn't find it. You have to do a FOIA. Why is that? What's being hidden? It makes somebody think that there's something, another agenda. I don't know. I mean, why couldn't we find out who it was? So before you vote on this, just know that the community really was not involved as we were promised. And the other thing I wanted to say, I guess that's it. It's just disappointing. It's just disappointing. And I already know you guys are going to vote yes, so thank you.
Next, we're moving on to our video testimonies. Please play the first video submitted by Leslie Houston.
Good evening, Chair Sizemore Heiser, school board members, Dr. Reed, and leadership team. I am Leslie Houston, the president of Fairfax Education Association, representing thousands of your employees who fully support the proposed equity policy presented by Dr. King and the equity team. In our pursuit of providing quality education for all, it is imperative that we recognize and address the disparities that exist within our schools. Equity in education means that every student, regardless of their background, race, socioeconomic status, or ability, has an equal opportunity to thrive and succeed. Unfortunately, some students in Fairfax County Public Schools do not have equal access to resources, opportunities, and support. This is not acceptable. It is our duty as educators and advocates to dismantle these barriers and create an educational landscape that is fair and inclusive. I urge you to pass this equity policy because we must foster an environment that embraces and values the richness of our differences, where every student feels seen, heard, and valued, where every student has access to rigorous courses and advanced programs regardless of the region in which they live. Tonight, your vote will make it clear that in our school system, the circumstances of one's birth do not dictate the trajectory of their life. This work of equity is arduous, but it is vital for the well-being and future of our students. Let's do what's best for kids. Thank you.
Please play the second video submitted by Nicole Sabatani.
I talk about DEIA, diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. When I was a TJ student more than 10 years ago, we talked a lot about diversity, but now we all know that diversity is necessary but insufficient. Inclusion must be intentional because when our schools have been segregated and stratified for so long, it's impossible to enact needed change in a passive manner. Accessibility is also crucial. Many of our kids need accommodations not because they're not fully capable, but rather because accommodations help them unlock their potential. For example, I'm right-handed, and I once injured my arm playing sports in college. It took weeks to recover. I received permission for extra time on my homework assignments and even a big exam, given that I had to write with my left hand and it took considerably longer. The fact that a process existed to receive such an accommodation benefited me, even though my injury was only temporary. As a TJ alumna and Fairfax County parent, I'm especially thrilled about the push towards greater equity. There's a lot of debate over what equity is, so we'll offer Code for America's definition as cited by Harvard professor Dr. Martha Minow. Equity is fair treatment, access, opportunity, and advancement for all people while striving to identify and eliminate barriers that have prevented the full participation of some groups. When I injured my arm in college and needed extra time on my schoolwork, nobody questioned my intelligence or called me lazy for needing the extra time. Nobody expected me to be able to complete the same tasks as quickly and completely with my non-dominant hand. Yet when I was a student in FCPS, people made these discriminatory and judgmental comments about students with accommodations all the time. Those who oppose equity are advocating for this inequity. They are advocating for the continued exclusion of marginalized students of all kinds. Abandoning equity would be a huge loss, not just for those students, but for all of us who need their contributions and friendship and ideas and so much more. I later learned that comments I heard as a Fairfax County student, like, no employer is going to give them special treatment in the real world, are rubbish. I'm honored to count many folks who need accommodations, from disabled veterans to those born with visible or invisible disabilities and illnesses among my colleagues. Equity is not just a nice to have, but a must at all our nation's best universities, workplaces, and organizations. Wherever our schools lack equity, we are falling behind and failing our students.
Madam Chair, that was our last public speaker.